On Tuesday, German Chancellor Angela Merkel was pelted with tomatoes at an election rally in Heidelberg over her open-door refugee policy. The 63-year-old chancellor came under literal and actual fire from hundreds of protesters voicing their upset over her open-doors policy during the 2015 migrant crisis. Police said 2 tomatoes were thrown during different parts of the chancellor's speech, with one striking her left hip. One of her aides was also hit by the flying fruit as the words liar and hypocrite rang in her ears. The noisy demonstration was fresh evidence that not all votes are guaranteed at the general election on September 24, when she seeks a 4th term in power. Some 3,000 people were at the rally, and those who demonstrated against her were angry at her refugee policies, which have seen over 1 million unvetted immigrants enter the country in the last 2 years. "If we made a mistake, then it wasn't in taking in people," Mrs. Merkel said in defense of her decision to open the doors to migrants in 2015. Recently campaigning in the eastern state of Saxony ahead of next month's federal elections, German Chancellor Angela Merkel was booed, heckled and shouted at by protesters angry at her open borders migrant policy and its transformative effects on Germany. Taking to the stage in the town square of Annaberg-Buchholz, as reported earlier by Gateway pundit reporter Damien Cowley, Merkel was forced to acknowledge the protest, such was the volume of "Get Lost," and Merkel must go chants emanating from the crowd. "Some want to get things done, and others just scream," the chancellor commented, speaking alongside local representatives of her CDU, Christian Democratic Union, party during what was her first campaign event in the former East Germany. Merkel is held responsible by many Germans for her September 2015 decision to open the country's borders to hundreds of thousands of unvetted Middle Eastern migrants, a move which was particularly unpopular in the formerly communist East, where resistance to multiculturalism remains strongest. It is in Saxony, bordering the Czech Republic, where Merkel's immigration policy has encountered its greatest resistance. The state was the birthplace of the Pegida protest movement, Patriotic Europeans Against the Islamization of the West, and is where the populist Alternative for Germany, Alternative for Deutschland, party has recorded its highest scores, winning 24.4% of the vote in 2016. Whilst hundreds of residents of the small town had turned out to hear the chancellor speak, the "Merkel must wig, Merkel must go" protesters succeeded in making their demonstration, rather than Merkel's speech, the main theme of the event's news coverage. Having presided over an economic recovery in Germany and dominating the political stage abroad, Merkel will go down in history for her decision to show Germany's friendly, beautiful face to the world by welcoming hundreds of thousands of migrants, a decision which spurred millions more to leave the Middle East and Africa bound for Europe. Less well known are the numbers that arrived in the decade prior to her controversial decision. From 2005 to 2015, immigration figures were already showing that Merkel had overseen a staggering 8 million immigrant arrivals into Germany, half of which came from other EU states, the other half arriving from beyond Europe. Despite the hostile reception in Annaberg, which saw Merkel leave the event to calls of traitor, and similar protests at numerous rallies this week, opinion polls consistently put the CDU on course to comfortably win the German federal elections on September 24.